Hello and welcome viewers and subscribers of AVG News. My name is Olisi, the son of Nome, and I hope I find you well wherever you are. I hope you had a wonderful weekend and you are looking forward to a bright new week. Well, as I promised last week, we're going to be having so many of these live broadcasts in which we review the situation on the ground in as far as African politics and African news are concerned. And today, as the headline already states, we are looking at the swearing in ceremony of Zimbabwean President Emerson Mnangagwa, uh, which took place earlier today in Harare. And we are responding to some of the questions that were sent to us, and some of them were not even questions, some were discussions that people sent to us. And so these are the topics that we're discussing, especially one, the swearing in ceremony; number two, the absence of heads of state of other African countries; and the Sadc observer team. What this means, you would remember that they wrote a scathing attack on the Zimbabwean election, especially the behavior of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and the manner in which the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission handled the Zimbabwean elections, resulting in them being contested, especially by the mainstream opposition, which is the Triple C, which is led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa. You would remember that they were complaining that the vote was stolen, that the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission mishandled the election, that the playing field was not fair, and that there were a number of other irregularities, including as well intimidation of voters by the ruling ZANU-PF party. And they say, rightly so, that this tilted the scales in favor of ZANU-PF and President Emerson Mnangagwa. Well, as we promised, but as we go ahead, I would like to request you again to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it, especially this live broadcast. If you can share it so that we reach a wide range of people who may be interested in this topic, because the idea is, at the end of the day, to widen our knowledge, to widen our wisdom on this. Well, the first topic is the swearing in ceremony. We all saw it. I hope some of you have been watching the live streams from different media houses. If you didn't, then we shared already one of the videos where Mnangagwa was taking his oath of office for the second and last term. And then also, we will post his full speech after this broadcast. You're going to see it for yourself. So just press the notification button and you will see it when we post it, because we already have it sent to us. It's been edited. What's left is for it to be posted. And you saw that there were a number of people at the National Sports Stadium. But of course, you know that whenever there is a ZANU-PF thing, there will always be some foodstuffs, free food that people will be given. We don't know today if it was there. But I saw Advocate Fatsai Mahere, the former spokesperson of Triple C, saying today is a good day for chicken in. So the swearing in ceremony went ahead as was planned. You'll remember that Triple C had wanted to file a court case, and we had been told that they were on the way to filing a court case on Saturday with the Zimbabwean courts to try and stop this swearing in ceremony, because they were saying that they have enough evidence which could lead to the country being forced into a fresh election. But this didn't happen, and we are told that the reason why they didn't file any court case was because they argue that the Zimbabwean courts are captured. You know that there are growing concerns that the judiciary in Zimbabwe, as any other state organ, is captured or is not independent, or it's dependent on the machinations of ZANU-PF. So this is the argument that they brought forward. We don't know, because they knew this going into this would-be court case, that the situation in Zimbabwe regarding the courts was at a certain, they had a certain connotations, or had a certain fears, but they still prepared the case to go to court. We don't know if indeed this was because they realized that the courts are captured at the last minute, or they didn't have enough evidence to present to the courts, because this was the fear that they didn't have enough in terms of V11s to prove that the election in Zimbabwe was grossly mishandled, despite, of course, these wild claims that we also have, because we do know that there was a lot of irregularities. But in a court of law, you have to bring proper evidence that is going to allow the court to view and review the whole process and then reach a ruling. You don't just go there with wishful thinking or hearsay. So I believe that either they didn't have enough in the form of V11s, or they didn't the V11s that they had, or if they had all of them that were given to their agents, maybe it proved that beyond the other irregularities on the part of ZEC, the figures may be tallied with what the ZEC, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, gave them. We don't know about that because they gave their own reason, and we have to respect that reason. And then the question that we got, which has come from different people, including on our social media channels, is why do we have a low turnout by African presidents, especially members of the African Union? Is it because they are snapping President Emerson Mnangagwa based on the reports that were given, especially by the Sadc Observer Mission? I don't think so. It might be, but what then belies this is that these heads of state who didn't attend, like the Zambian president, who is the head or the chair of the Sadc organ troika on politics, defense and security cooperation, Mr. Hichilema, sent representatives. So Zambia was represented here at the swearing-in ceremony by its foreign affairs minister. South African president Cyril Ramaphosa attended in person. Other countries sent their former heads of state. Edgar Lungu, who is the former head of state for Zambia, also attended. Mokgweetsi Masisi, the president of Botswana, sent a representative. Almost all these other African countries whose president or whose heads of state, because others have prime ministers, could not attend the event, sent through their representatives. And sending a representative is as good as you attending, because you are saying that although the president is committed elsewhere, he is showing that he is in solidarity with this by sending a representative. For as long as a representative is sent by the head of state, that representative takes up the space of the head of state or represent the head of state, because they go there with a solidarity message. They sign a solidarity book, and for as long as they've been there representing their country's flag, it's as good as them having been there. So, of course, there is propaganda. We are living in a world of politics. This is a political matter. And for a country like Zimbabwe, where there is a lot of political antagonism between the mainstream opposition and the ruling party, politicians are going to spin this around. We saw the Zimbabwe government spokesperson trying to make a meal out of some head of state attending the event, or some sending representatives there, while the opposition was trying by all means, of course, to say that these heads of state could not attend because they saw this as a sham election. They didn't want to be associated with it. But as long as you have sent someone, it means that you are in solidarity. And there is another twist, because there is an Africa summit, there is an Africa climate summit rather in Nairobi, Kenya, where some heads of state are attending. And you would know that this swearing-in ceremony of Zimbabwean president today was hastily arranged, because many people were invited or knew about the invitations on Friday. So it was already too late. Some of these heads of state had already committed to the Africa Climate Summit. So they therefore, instead of just snapping the whole event, sent through their representatives. So we have to make it clear then that many of them are committed elsewhere in their own countries. There are also several others who are attending the Africa Climate in Nairobi. Our duty is to inform, not misinform. Our duty is not to disinform. It is not to spread propaganda on anybody's favor, but we are here as a channel that seeks to portray the truth as it is. So we have to be factual with what we are telling you. And for those who want to verify, you can check the Africa Climate Summit, who is there, who is not there, and you will discover that it is far from Africa snapping the re-election of Emmerson Mnangagwa as president of Zimbabwe. But of course, it doesn't also take away the fact that there is a growing concern, especially within the Sadc region, that the elections in Zimbabwe were not properly handled, that the elections in Zimbabwe were not free and fair. And then this takes us to the next point, which is the Sadc Observer Team finding or report on the Zimbabwean election. We got the question which says, since the inauguration has been done, is there any more that is going to be done in as far as the Sadc Observer Team report is concerned? Because we're talking here about people who were dispatched by the regional bloc to monitor and observe the Zimbabwean elections. They are expected then to come up with a report whose preliminary one. We have already seen the preliminary edition of the Sadc Observer Team report has already been read. It has been made public by the head of the mission, that is Dr. Nevas Squila Mumba. We know that it brought up some lot of talk, including some insults coming from some members of the ZANU-PF political party. Now, what we are hearing is that that report has been handed over to President Hakainde Hichilema, the Zambian president, who is also the chairperson of the Sadc Organ Tracker on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation. So what he's going to do is he's going to sift through it, but he's not going to change anything within the report. He's also going to hand it over to the regional bloc, that is Sadc, so that it is reviewed, and before any decision can be arrived at, they will request that ZANU-PF, as a political party that has been fingered, and probably Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, will also write their own reports based on the allegations that have been raised in the report, because the final report, we are told, has been handed over to President HH, the Zambian president. So they are also going to write their own reports and submit them to the regional bloc via the same channel. And then the Sadc is going to sit in June next year. They might, if they believe that there is an urgent need to review this, they might call a special summit on Zimbabwe to then review this. But we don't foresee that happening because there's not court case. The situation in Zimbabwe is very calm. So they are going to maybe come up with whatever recommendation they are going to come up with based on how it has to be workable going forward for Zimbabwe in between this just ended election and the next one, which is in 2028, because you'll remember there's a Sadc protocol on politics and elections that has to be followed by member states, of which Zimbabwe has been found wanting in this particular instance. And they may come up with recommendations as to how to assist Zimbabwe to hold a better election come 2028. But before then, because you know that a situation, if the Zimbabwean situation worsens going forward during the next 5 years, it's going to affect Sadc and AU member states. So they might come up with a solution that is going to make it workable for Zimbabwe, both politically and economically, as we go ahead towards the 2028 elections. So we don't foresee them in any manner trying to force a fresh election in Zimbabwe, because that decision that has bolted, because that decision could only have come from a Zimbabwean court, which is in this instant the Constitutional Court, and it would also only come if there's been a court case, and that court case had to be made within 7 days of the announcement of results. So we have to make that clear. I've seen also Advocate Nelson Chamisa on Twitter saying that God has remembered Zimbabwe. He's even putting in his routine vases there, and he's saying that there's something that is going to happen. People must remain hopeful or keep their faith. If, let me state this clearly, if that doesn't include working with ZANU-PF, maybe as the opposition and the ruling party, I don't see anything else happening. I have to be clear with that. The only way that the opposition, whether mainstream or anyhow, can be part of the solution that is going to come within the next 5 years is for them to work with ZANU-PF. Without that, don't be misled into believing that there is something else that is going to happen, which is going to force a fresh election. We said that we're not here to misinform, we're not here to disinform, we are here to inform. So that is what is going to happen as things go. And ZANU-PF is already saying no to a GNU, and we have heard President Mnangagwa worryingly. He did that last week in Buhera, that is Manicaland. He did that again today, that people must toe the line or else. So this means that the intransigency of ZANU-PF is going to go ahead, but the president has been speaking with forked tongues. One day he's inviting every Zimbabwean to come on board, and when you say Zimbabweans must come on board, you are also saying even members of the opposition, because Zimbabwe is for them all. There is no Zimbabwe for the opposition and Zimbabwe for the ruling party. So you don't invite people to come on board and work with you, and at the same time threaten them for seeing things differently from you. We all want a Zimbabwe that is peaceful. We all want a Zimbabwe that is progressive, but we also want a Zimbabwe where human rights and personal freedoms are respected by everyone, where people are allowed to protest, but those who are allowed to protest also do so with a sense of responsibility, because it is citizens' responsibility to keep the country workable and governable. But also at the same time, it is the duty of the government of the day to preserve life, to preserve and safeguard personal freedoms, even the freedom of those who don't see eye to eye with those that are governing. We have to be clear about that. So this is what we had for you today. Continue to send us those questions, continue to give us those topics that you want us to discuss here. And if you want to be part of this broadcast or to be interviewed in as far as Africa is concerned, it doesn't have to only be politics, it doesn't have to be about Zimbabwe. It has to be about Africa, because this is African Voice Global Channel. It is a channel for the whole of Africa, and we are going to spread to the rest of Africa. This week alone, we will have a seminar that will be covering, which is talking about the situation in Sudan. You know that there is an ongoing civil war in Sudan. We are going to have a seminar held here in Johannesburg that will be covering, and we'll be covering that seminar live on the AVG News YouTube channel, this channel, and our Facebook page, which is AVG News. If you're not yet a follower of that page, please search it up on Facebook, follow it, and continue again to engage with us in the comment section, or you can inbox us. You can also send us a WhatsApp on +27 73 962 3075. We also have in line an interview that we're going to do with an activist from Mali. We're going to do it here in Johannesburg. We will visit them or call them to the studio, where we will talk to them about the situation in Mali. You remember again that there was a coup that happened in Mali, and those guys who led the coup have been at loggerheads with France and French representatives in the country. We want to hear more about what the situation is right now, because this representative or this activist has been to Mali a number of times, and they're going to be telling us the situation there. And you remember that there is a South African journalist who was abducted in Mali. And they will be telling it because this is a guy who was part of the people that tried to negotiate between those that captured the South African, so that the South African person is released and handed over to their family, reunited with their family safely. So these are some of the issues that we'll be tackling. So please continue to send us those questions, to send us those suggestions, and to send us those comments, because it's only you who can make this channel a better one, which truly represents the views, the news, the mood of Africa. This is your channel. We thank you again for subscribing to this channel, for sharing these videos that we are posting, and also for following our page. It has grown tremendously from 2,100 followers just last week to 7,600 followers within just barely 7 days. This shows, and it's people from all over Africa, from Zambia, from Namibia, from Botswana, from Zimbabwe, from South Africa, from Mozambique. It's truly a channel that is growing to be the voice of the voiceless, the voice of the vulnerable in Africa. Thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it. Ciao.